Chapter 3. School and Stephen. Soon my mom was going to call me downstairs for dinner, and after dinner would come the reading of the grades. And then, boom! My whole life was flashing in front of me like a report on the 6 o'clock news. Memories kept flooding in. I couldn't help it, and I realized that this explosion had been building up ever since I went to school. Another fact from the memory files: I had gotten off to a bad start in kindergarten. That's mostly because I spent my first 2 weeks at Philbrook Elementary School hiding under a table in Mrs. Bridges' room, pretending I was a cat. I meowed and hissed, and at snack time I poured my milk into a plastic bowl I had brought from home. That was so I could lap up the milk with my tongue. I acted like a cat until 11:53 every day. Then I would get up, dust off my knees, put on my jacket, and get ready to ride the bus to my afternoon daycare. The cat business had started a month before kindergarten began. I had read this great article in National Geographic about leopards, and then I learned everything else I could about cats. I had decided that cats were amazing and wonderful, and I thought it would be fun to see what it felt like to be a cat. That's where the idea came from. But the real reason I began being a cat at school was because I knew that if I started doing schoolwork in kindergarten, it would be too easy. Everyone would have thought I was too good at it. Being too good would have made me seem too different. It was so much easier to be different by being a cat. No one would suspect that a cat liked to read the Encyclopedia Britannica. No one would guess that a cat had memorized 38 of the poems in a child's garden of verses. No one would suspect that a cat had taught herself to understand Spanish by watching the Univision channel. And no one would suspect that a cat was interested in maps and history and archaeology and astronomy and space travel and the Latin names for animals, like Felis catus, the domestic cat. I was smart, but I didn't have much experience. I was still a 5-year-old kid. So I made a miscalculation, because I thought that if once everyone at school had gotten used to the idea that I was pretending to be a cat, they'd pretty much leave me alone. But of course, that wasn't the way it worked at school. Right away, Mrs. Bridge called my mom. My mom got upset, and then she told my dad, and he got upset. I've always loved my mom and dad, but they tend to get excited too easily, especially about school stuff. That was why I always kept one part of myself hidden from them, the smart part. So back when I was in kindergarten, my parents didn't even know I could read. And really, it hadn't been that hard for me to keep my smart part a secret. My mom was working for a real estate company, and my dad was running his own business. And then there was the housework and the yard work, plus 3 kids to take care of. Fact: my mom and dad have always been busier than sparrows. I've never tried to get attention, and I didn't cause any problems, so everyone left me alone most of the time. I was careful never to give my mom and dad anything to worry about. I spent a lot of time looking at books when I was little, and I'm sure they noticed that. But they must have thought I just liked to look at the pictures. And I also spent a lot of time watching TV. But it's not like I was some kind of weirdo, zombie, tube-head, hermit bookworm, because that would have really made them worry. I had friends at daycare and in the neighborhood, and I liked to play soccer and mess around outside. Mom and Dad thought I was an ordinary kid. Then I went to school and turned into Kindercat. So my mom and dad got worried, and they called the principal, Mrs. Hackney. And then the special education teacher and the guidance counselor got involved, and everyone at school decided I had a learning disability. I could feel how they all started looking at me, and I didn't like that. I didn't want people to think that there was something wrong with me. So after 2 weeks, I knew I had to stop being a cat. But I didn't want to start being myself. That seemed too dangerous.